I tell you, Lee, I don't know if AI will or will not destroy the world, but I am having a hell of a good time generating images and cartoons with it in the interim.
Well, so let me ask you a question, because I've seen this stuff you've done. That's great. But let me ask you a question. If you did not have the AI tools, would you have paid an artist to do those images? And if so, what would have been a fair price? I mean, a fair price.
I mean, the answer to the first question is no, I definitely would not have, because I have in my professional career paid artists for stuff like that. And I think
Yes.
even one of the images that I've produced over the past several days, it would be an incredibly low price if an artist charged $500 for just one of them, and I think it would be more like 5,000 to get the level of quality that we're talking about. And no, I would have nowhere near the.
Also, let me, because I'll bring up the human factor again later, but I want to make a point here. Okay, people are great. Obviously, I'm a person. Okay, people are great. But, however, when you work with people, and you know this, if you would, some artists, if you're paying them and they give you a piece of artwork and you don't like one thing about it, and you say, okay, can we make this change? Some people will throw a hissy fit. They'll be
Yeah.
hurt. Their feelings will
Yes.
be hurt.
Right.
Am I right?
Absolutely. And you might even
AI's
lose
feelings,
access to that person.
and it right for purely emotional reasons. And if it's like, let's say your girlfriend, if your girlfriend was an artist and said, okay, I'll have her do it, she can do a cartoon, and she does it, and you say, okay, can we change this to be a little thicker line? She hears, he hates me. We're breaking up. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Uh, and this is real. This is the real world of being an artist and hiring artists. Uh, and that's one reason, because if you don't get what you want, sometimes you have no way of getting what you want, because they'll like, and the third, about revision 3, most people start to be like, okay, come on,
Yeah.
figure out what you
No,
want.
right, exactly. You're going to be out of revisions by revision 3. And some of these I've been through hours and hours of iterations. Let me ask you something. Does this look like anybody we know? Or some people have said it doesn't. I don't know.
Uh, well, looks like an Archie and Jughead version. I can't tell what it's supposed to be.
He's at the Zanesville Municipal Court building, and I'm there with a bag of cash. Is
Yeah.
that ringing any
So
bells?
it, it was supposed to be Georgia. I guess that kind of look. I always think of Benny Johnson when I see that. The type of look.
Hmm. Benny Johnson? Oh,
Yeah,
that journalist?
yeah, yeah. Benny.
Huh. I don't know him that well. But
So
anyway,
also J.R. Bob Dobbs. If you Google J.R. Bob Dobbs,
J.R. Bob Dobbs. He's not related to Bob Dobalina, is he? Because that's my
no,
favorite person.
J.R. Bob Dobbs is the patron saint of Slack.
Oh, yeah,
So
right. Oh, yes. I know this guy.
again, Benny Johnson often has that look. I think.
Uh huh. Wow. Well, the other thing that I'm doing with generative AI, Lee, is photoreal imagery, and we've got a great one today. What are we going to be talking about? This is the Overton window. It's apparently open here in Mr. Shapiro's office, and cash is flying in.
So I was thinking about this, but before I get to the point I want to make about the mainstream media as the launching pad, uh, I was thinking, uh, actually, let me come back to that. So I was thinking, one thing I was thinking was the people, a lot, look, who are the top names in independent journalism on the right? Joe Rogan, Tucker, I'm not right exactly, but a certain kind of.
I don't know if you can call those guys independent. I mean, yes, they are, but Joe Rogan is paid $200 million from Spotify. I think
Okay,
Laura is knocking it out of the park with this stuff she did, figuring out the judge's daughter is doing all this funding.
so let's come back to her in a second, but she fits in a different way. Uh, but like Candace Owens or
Yeah,
uh, S. Tucker or whatever, all of them, I think, started with some company spending millions of dollars promoting him,
true.
right? I
Yes.
mean, Candace Owens, by the way, we're going to talk about Ferris Wilk. Ferris Wilk's the funding behind DataWire, and we'll talk about him more in a second. But he also funded Prager University, and that's where Candace Owens got her start, being promoted. You
Yeah.
know, the big promo stuff with Candace started at Prager University. So
Yeah.
this guy, Ferris Wilk, has been consistently funding Candace Owens, but I'm not 100% convinced that she knows who he is.
Right.
I'm always looked into him, uh, because, like I say, when I was at Breitbart, one day a reporter called me. I was working for Breitbart, and they said, "So what do you think about this thing Robert Mercer did?" And I said, "Who?" And the reporter said, "You know, Robert Mercer." And I said, "Who?" They said, "Robert Mercer, the billionaire who's funding Breitbart News." I said, "I had no idea who that was." And so I
Yeah.
looked it up and found out, sure enough, he was. And that's, by the way, I don't know if I can express this in a way that's everyone will identify with, but I'll try. My perception, have you ever had your perception of someone change in like
Oh
an
yeah.
instant and you
Yeah.
saw them in a very different light? It's
Yeah.
almost like an optical illusion where you switch from, you know, is it a woman or a wine glass? You know what I'm saying?
So you call your girlfriend and a dude answers, that kind of thing?
Right. No, so here's an example. I didn't catch Steve Bannon in any compromising position. Thank God. I still have eyes, you can see. So, but I'd always perceived Steve Bannon as a boss. I'd always been a guy I worked for. Makes sense? Who's, you know, uh, even on Occupy Unmasked, the film he directed that I'm in, he
Hmm.
was the guy in charge. Makes sense? So
Yes.
I was always seeing Steve Bannon as a guy in charge, a boss. And then in an instant, I saw him as an employee. I saw he was a lackey. I saw
Hmm.
he just was. It's, you know, I, I could see it. I could see it. When I looked into Mercer, I was like, okay, that's why Bannon is doing this. I get it. Okay. I
Hmm.
By finding out what Mercer was interested in. And by the way, an example of that would be uh, Robert Mercer has a, I believe, sister, Rebecca Mercer. I believe it's his sister. And I've heard stories about her, kind of legendary nut job, sort of. Uh, she's again a very rich person, uh, high above New York, right?
Yep.
You know what I mean, that kind of thing. And she like obsesses about candy in a meeting with you. Several people told me she'll get a big bowl of candy and she'll go through it, picking out colors of M&Ms,
Wow.
right, and separating them while having a meeting. So you're sitting there to talk to her, and
She's doing candy.
right, it's weird. But
It
she was a
is.
big advocate of, she liked Milo a lot. She was
Milo
into Milo,
Yiannopoulos.
right? So that explained why they spent so much money. Breitbart spent over $1 million on the Milo Dangerous Faggot tour, $1 million, and uh, even more when you talk about the hotel rooms that they trash. Uh,
Right. He was
so
trying to be like the Kiss of independent journalism or something like that and was on a huge tear for a while. But then he flamed out, really, didn't he?
he did well. He had a lot of issues. He was actively doing bumps of cocaine
Oh,
off
boy.
the steering wheel of the bus while it's driving down the road. I know people who
That's
saw that. I know people who actually filmed that. So I
That
feel
never ends
comfortable.
well.
So and also picking up the mythology about Milo is Milo loved black guys because that makes him extra naughty.
Edgy. Right.
But in fact, Milo liked younger, in some cases under 18, uh, white guys. And I saw him come out of a hotel once, and the guy was with was a younger white guy, and uh, and so I'm not saying I don't care. I mean, I shouldn't know, right?
Well,
If I know what type he's into without seeing him holding hands with someone, is a giveaway, right? You know,
yeah.
uh, that tells you something. But nothing wrong with saying, but I'm just saying, I don't think it's I think it's a weird thing to do it as a publicity stunt, right?
Is that what he was doing?
I believe so. I was told this by multiple people. That basically, the guy
But isn't
used
it
to,
illegal underage? I mean, why would he do that?
well, you'd have to ask him why we do it. But I know someone who has footage of Milo giving alcohol to someone under 18 on
Mm.
the bus. On the bus. I'm sure he's just going to get him drunk and talk politics.
Hmm.
I'm not so sure, really.
You know, speaking of Steve Bannon, I'm looking for it, but I can't quite find it. I saw something on Twitter today about, he's got this interview with Epstein, and somebody even had a little bit of footage from it there. Why is he not releasing that interview? Or maybe we don't know.
No, uh, but what I'm saying is all this, like, I think the average person perceives like the Daily Wire is Ben Shapiro, right? He's a boss, and they associate him with that, like it's a blog he started. Make sense,
Front man.
Jason?
Yeah, absolutely.
So switch your perception. Think of him not as a boss, but as an employee.
Hmm.
Someone supplied him $4.4 million.
Mm-hmm.
So would you think that might affect the policies of Daily Wire? Well,
Absolutely.
we don't have to guess. If you research a little bit about Ferris Wilks and see what he believes, and then line up with what the Daily Caller
Daily
position
Wire.
is. Sorry about Daily Wire. If you do that, right,
Yep.
pretty much a one-to-one, you'll see why they cover what they cover, and it's interesting. But you know, for reasons I said, I don't believe Candace. It does not mean, well, she's got to know. I don't buy that. I think she might not know. And also, one thing in general people don't take into account is because people don't like to talk about it, is most people are not like plucked from the womb
Whoa.
as a patriot.
Mm.
People evolve, people's positions change. Okay, I've been very public about when my position changed. I was a libertarian teenager in my 20s to 30s. I was a Democrat, largely because I did not like George W. Bush, and I was opposed to the Iraq War.
Yeah.
And so my issues have always been free speech and peace. Okay. And at the time, under the Bush presidency, the Democrats were kind of the good guys for free speech. Remember that?
I wasn't that focused on the free speech, but I agreed with you on not liking George Bush and the war in Iraq and all that.
Now, aside from the fact people forget that, do you remember the sticker, the PMRC?
Oh,
Tipper
yeah, for the
Gore?
records with Tipper Gore. Right, exactly. Wanting to
Right.
shut down NWA and everything. I do remember that.
So there's a history in the modern Democrat Party of being pro censorship.
Right.
But that was there's most Republicans at the time. So I was a Democrat. And then I, uh, in the process of meeting Andrew Breitbart, I became a Republican, but I became his kind of Republican. I could see at my first CPAC, about 3 months after I met Andrew, I could see the split. There was this, because you've been to a few CPACs, right?
Well, no, I went to one and they kicked me out. I don't even know how they knew who I was.
Okay, so I didn't know that.
They
Uh,
didn't even let me in. They didn't kick me out. They
if
just
you
said
go
you
to
can't come
CPAC,
in.
anyone who's been there, there's not like big banners with George W. Bush's smiling face on them.
Right.
W. Bush is a non-presence. He's talked about. He's just, there's no trace of him. It's not that they banned him. It's no one cares. No one makes sense. So he's not left an impression really. Uh, I believe he has covertly, but for branding, think about the GOP.
Oh,
And,
right. They talk about Ronald Reagan and stuff, but they never
right.
talk about George. But he's like expunged from the record, essentially.
And who's the Democrat president? Answer: no one. So Bill Clinton is treated as a conquering hero. You saw that at his fundraiser recently. It's Bill Clinton. They still revere him.
Right.
They never unpersoned anybody, but the people unpersoned Bush. If the establishment had their way, I could see this divide of the establishment Republicans kind of barely hanging on, and upstarts like Breitbart, like Steve King, like Michelle Bachmann, people I knew, uh, people like Thomas Massey, I don't think were around then, but I could see they were getting bolder politicians. And so when Trump came out, it was not a shock to me. I was like, okay, finally, someone's talking about immigration, finally, because everyone in the country was talking about it. When I go to different cities covering protests for Breitbart, I'd like land in San Francisco and have to take an Uber to my hotel. So I always talk to drivers because to me, it's like a chance to talk to a person there.
From
So I
there.
said,
Yeah.
how's the economy? It's, he said, it's horrible. I'm doing this job because it's horrible. He said, I had to move out. I work in Oakland, but he said, I had to move out to Dublin. Now, I know where Dublin, California is. It's like sort of outskirts a bit. And with traffic in the Bay Area, a trip of like 5 miles could take an hour.
Yeah, I
Makes
know.
sense? So,
I've done it. LA too. It's really bad.
yeah. And so Dublin's outskirts, that told me a lot that this guy is having to people. So I asked the next driver, I said, have you had to move? And he said, yeah. And every driver, and so I started asking people because I realized I was onto something. Makes sense?
Yeah.
So, and it was all, I could see things building. And one issue that no one was talking about, but everyone was talking about among the people was immigration. Everyone was kind of aware of what was going on at the border. They'd seen pictures, they'd heard about it. And I'd been down there and covered when they started the policy change that caused what happened was one day there was suddenly a rush of people at the San Diego border, San Ysidro. Okay.
Yeah.
And it was about a month after a policy change. And so I thought about it, and basically the way people work in crowds. I thought, okay, what happened was the policy change. You can now get into the country if you say, I think I'm being persecuted. They're like, go in.
Yeah.
So at first, people were hearing that. And so people thought it was like not true. But a couple
Right.
of people tried it and it worked. They just let them in. So what happened was they called or texted back, to their cousin or whoever, their
With a free
brother,
phone given to them by Joe Biden.
right, and said, this really works, and I'm calling you on the free phone I got, blah blah blah, right? And so most of them will go, most people will go, nah, that's BS, but a few will go, and then they'll write back to their family and so on, and it keeps going until there's suddenly, it's like exponential. It's like 1, 2, 4, many.
Yep.
And so what happened was there was an explosion of people who thought this thing that was too good to be true was true. And see, makes sense? And
Yeah.
once that happened, I knew it was over because what was now going to happen was the number of people writing back, That's why you see those people now saying, I'm doing this for the adventure. You know, people say like, oh, would you want to leave your country? No, I would not, but I wouldn't want to. But if another country was offering me free stuff, then I saw these guys who were like stopped at the border, and they talked about this as an adventure. So see,
But also, Lee, I think a lot of people were living in like mud huts or squalor, and so the notion that you could come here and get a free hotel room and food and stuff, it was pretty attractive to people. I don't mean to interrupt you, but I do think it's important that, there might be some people watching who have heard this term Overton window, and it's a funny graphic with, Ben Shapiro having cash fly in the window. But before we get ready to go over to our sponsor exclusive segment here, which people are going to be able to watch on patreon.com/Stranahan, and also get a simulcast on odyssey.com/@crowdsourcethetruth, crowdsourcethetruth.substack.com, and subscribestar.com, and patreon.com/crowdsourcethetruth. Let's just take a minute to explain to people, for those who don't know, what the Overton window is and how the kind of cash infusion that you're talking about from Ferris Wilks and the Mercers and whatever, how does this open or close this or move this Overton window?
well, without getting into the specifics, because again, with the exact term Overton window is often described. So without getting the weeds on that, what I was using a term is to talk about the acceptable range of debate. Okay,
Yes.
Okay, I assume, let's say data wire. Okay, at obvious extremes. Okay, if I wanted an article called "Nazis Are Awesome," I assume that would be rejected, right?
Probably, yeah. You're going to have a limited audience for that.
But on the other hand, at the other end, if it was like the column was like Jews are the chosen people, they would probably reject that too, because it's kind of too.
But if you said Israel is awesome, I think they would run that.
I think they would run that. And like you say, that's the gap there. So it's a matter of finding it. And when you look into this guy, Ferris Wilks, I think it helps to define it. And if you look at the, I'll put it like this: I'm somewhat sympathetic for Ben Shapiro because he's somewhat owned. Wealth and making money is addictive. And look, I'll put it like this: once you have a certain kind of house in LA,
Yeah.
and you're really making money, going to a 2-bedroom apartment in Phoenix,
You don't want to do it. Yeah.
and especially like, honey, okay, we'll get a bunk bed for the kids.
Right. It's not going to fly with the wife. No, that's for real, because once you've established with your family a certain level of comfort, if you're the provider and it goes way, way down, yeah, that creates all kinds of tension and problems. But Lee, let me pause you here, and we're going to continue in the sponsor exclusive segment. Even just right now while you were talking, I found something about Ferris Wilks that we did not know, or at least I didn't know last week, that I think is going to blow people's minds. So I hope that people will stay with us and join us in just 5 minutes on patreon.com/Stranahan, and also on odyssey.com/@crowdsourcethetruth, crowdsourcethetruth.substack.com, and subscribestar.com, and patreon.com/crowdsourcethetruth. Thanks for supporting the show, everybody.
The adult portion of our show will be on Patreon. So,
oh yes, Lee has a great surprise for us, and we'll see everybody in 5 minutes. Thanks for sponsoring the show.